Hey everybody, and welcome back to another DN Durkin video. As always, I'm Durkin, and I hope you're having a blessed week so far. Before we get started, I'd like to give a brief reminder that I'm currently running a giveaway for 1,050 shards on either PS4 or Xbox One. Check out the link in the description to enter. Okay, on to the news. BioWare has finally released details on a loot update. This is something we've all been excited for, so let's dive right in. The update comes from Ben Irving via a Reddit post, where he first and foremost thanks us for our feedback and summarizes the takeaways they got from it. What the post states is that we're not happy with how many inscriptions are not useful for the item for which they're attached, and that this leads to an inordinate amount of masterwork drops to often be necessary to get a good item. As such, we either want an increase in masterwork drops or we want a change in how inscriptions are rolled to make them more useful. I would say most of that feedback I agree with. However, after the loot buff debacle on Friday, I think what most of us were hoping for is for both an inscription rework and an increase to drop rates. So, what is BioWare going to do about this? Starting Friday, inscriptions are going to be less random. Every new item earned after the loot patch, though it may actually just be launched as a hotfix, will now have several improvements applied to how their inscriptions are rolled. Inscription pools will be smaller and more targeted. Currently, inscription pools exist, however, they are very generic, such as weapon. This means that currently, since both assault rifles and machine pistols are both weapons, that an assault rifle can roll with plus machine pistol damage, and vice versa. Once the loot update rolls out, there will be both an assault rifle and machine pistol inscription pool, which will ensure that all item-specific inscription rolls are useful for the piece of gear on which they're rolled, which leads us into item-specific inscriptions will now always be useful for that item. Never again will you get that dreaded gear icon next to an inscription that is totally irrelevant to the piece of gear it's on. No more plus acid damage to marksman rifles. No more plus sniper damage to autocannons. No more plus combo bonus to a non-detonating ability. It will still be possible, for example, for an assault rifle to roll plus electricity damage, but that will always be a javelin-wide inscription, as assault rifles don't do electricity damage. On top of this, inscriptions will be more consistent in the types of benefits they provide, because every masterwork, as we know, has 4 inscriptions, but they all have a category: major primary, major secondary, and minor secondary. From how Ben's post is written, it seems that this is already something that is in the game, but from what I've seen on rolls for my gear, it's not well defined as to what rolls can result from each inscription category. After the loot update though, primary inscriptions will focus on damage or survivability, and secondary inscriptions will focus on utility. This helps both rein in the power gap between a good and bad roll, and provide a more balanced array of stats across all of your gear. Now, I know what you're thinking, that's great, but what about drop rates? This area is a bit more speculative. Also in Ben's post, he noted a change I think everyone will love. They removed common and uncommon items from level 30 drop tables. No more whites and greens in Grandmaster. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to get more masterwork drops. However, it could. In order to best explain how that might be, I'm going to throw some math at you. Let's say, hypothetically, that currently any given drop in Grandmaster 1 has a 20% chance to be white, 20% chance to be green, 20% chance to be blue, 20% chance to be purple, 10% chance to be masterwork, or 10% chance to be legendary. By removing whites and greens from the loot pool, that means one of two things will happen. We'll either see way more blues, or we'll see more blues, purples, masterworks, and legendaries. This is because 40% of the loot chance has become unaccounted for by removing whites and greens. The first, and in my opinion worst, thing that they could do is simply make the blue item loot pool larger by making the new drop chance 60% blue, 20% purple, 10% masterwork, and 10% legendary. The other possibility, and the one I hope that they employ, is that they divide the missing 40% evenly among all remaining item rarities, leading to a new drop chance of 30% blue, 30% purple, 20% masterwork, or 20% legendary. Using this method of loot redistribution, removing greens and whites from the loot pool indirectly buffs masterwork, and legendary drop chances. This is the only option, in my opinion, that really makes sense, as otherwise you're just replacing one type of useless loot with another. Now, I do want to make a quick side note here that no, the current drop chance is not 10% for legendaries or 10% for masterworks. These are just easy round numbers to explain the concept. Now, there's a reason that I think that they're going to go with the second option, and that is because in the post, there is a second loot acquisition rate improvement that is slightly more of a concrete buff, which supports that they are looking to give us a little bit more loot a little faster. And that is that crafting materials needed to craft a masterwork item have been reduced from 25 masterwork embers to 15 masterwork embers. This is a direct buff to the frequency at which you can craft new masterwork gear, and thus a buff to masterwork acquisition or drop rates. We'll likely have to wait until the loot update is applied, though, to know for sure how the removal of common and uncommon items affects the Grandmaster loot tables. All in all, these are some pretty great improvements. What do you think, though? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to press that like button and click the subscribe button for more Anthem videos from me every week. God bless.